Let me quote Father of Nation Mahatma Gandhi. The true sense of rights is duty. If we all discharge our duties, rights will not be far to seek, unquote. Hello and welcome viewers. You're watching In Depth with your host Kriti Mishra. The fundamental duties are an important part of the Indian Constitution. The duties prescribed embody some of the highest ideals preached by our great saints, philosophers, social reformers and political leaders. In this edition, you'll get to know everything you wanted to know about fundamental duties. So come along. The duties are enshrined in the Constitution of India as a moral obligation upon the citizen to uphold the spirit of democracy and patriotism. As citizens of India, we have certain rights guaranteed to us for our well-being. Similarly, there are certain duties which are expected to be fulfilled by us. Citizenship is the validation of the social contract between the people of country and the government elected by them, which is legitimized by the Constitution of our country. A right of the citizens is the basis of this contract. While emphasizing on rights, it is very important that the citizens are also sincere about their duties towards the society at large and the country, especially its safety and security imperatives. Close scrutiny of the fundamental duties indicates that a number of them refer to values which have been part of Indian tradition, mythology, religion and practices. India is one of the few countries in the world with a glorious tradition of democracy since ancient times, where people have had a tradition of performing their duties. Since time immemorial, an individual's kartavya, the performance of one's duties towards the society, his or her country, and his or her parents was emphasized. The Bhagavad Gita and Ramayana also ask people to perform their duties. Mahatma Gandhi said that the very performance of a duty secures us our right. Rights cannot be divorced from duties. Mahatma Gandhi said, and I quote, "Satyagraha was born, for I was always striving to decide what my duty was," unquote. Also Swami Vivekananda observed, and I quote, "It is the duty of every person to contribute to the development and progress of India." The fundamental duties help to regulate the behavior of citizens and to bring about excellence in all the spheres of the citizens.
I appeal to all of you. You will turn out to be better citizens of this country. You will catalyze a good ecosystem once you follow yourself the fundamental duties given in the Constitution and also ensure that others equally follow that.
A very significant feature of the Indian Constitution is that it balances citizens' rights and duties. No duties of the citizen were incorporated in the original Constitution of India at the time of its commencement in 1950. The fundamental duties of citizens were added to the Constitution by the 42nd Amendment Act in 1976. Originally, there were 10 duties. However, by the 86th Amendment in 2002, they were increased to 11. The Swarn Singh Committee was set up in 1976. Under the chairmanship of Sardar Swarn Singh, the committee was entrusted with the task of exploring the question of amending the Constitution of India. The committee recommended several changes in the Constitution, which were accepted by the government. The concept of fundamental duties was borrowed from the former Soviet Union's constitution. The socialist government held that both rights and duties were equally important. The 42nd Amendment Act of 1976 amended the Indian Constitution by adding 10 fundamental duties. The 11th fundamental duty was later on added to the list by the 86th Amendment Act of 2002. The fundamental duties serve as a reminder to individuals that while exercising their rights, they must also be mindful of the obligation they owe to their nation, society, and fellow citizens. However, the responsibilities, like the directive principles, are not justiciable in nature. Three things make a nation. First, its noble ideals. Second, the citizens capable of achieving the noble ideals. Third, is the striving for excellence by such citizens. Let's take a look at our fundamental duties. Article 51A reads that it shall be the duty of every citizen of India to abide by the Constitution and respect its ideals and institutions, the national flag and the national anthem. To cherish and follow the noble ideals which inspired our national struggle for freedom. To uphold and protect the sovereignty, unity and integrity of India. To defend the country and render national service when called upon to do so. To promote harmony and spirit of common brotherhood amongst all the people of India, transcending religious, linguistic and regional or sectional diversities. To renounce practices derogatory to the dignity of women. To value and preserve the rich heritage of our composite culture. To protect and improve the natural environment including forests, lakes, rivers and wildlife, and to have compassion for living creatures. To develop the scientific temper, humanism and the spirit of inquiry and reform. To safeguard public property and to abjure violence. To strive towards excellence in all spheres of individual and collective activity so that the nation constantly rises to higher levels of endeavour and achievement. Subsequently, another duty was added by the 86th Constitutional Amendment Act of 2002 for a parent or guardian to provide opportunities for education of the child or ward between the age of 6 and 14. It was added when Article 21A, that is, right to education, was made a fundamental right.
महात्मा गांधी कहते थे कि हमारे अधिकार हमारे वो कर्तव्य हैं जिन्हें हम सच्ची इंटीग्रिटी और डेडिकेशन के साथ पूरा करते हैं। आज अमृत काल में जब हम आजादी के 75 वर्ष पूर्ण करके अगले 25 वर्षों की यात्रा शुरू कर रहे हैं, तो संविधान का ये मंत्र देश के लिए एक संकल्प बन रहा है। आजादी का यह अमृत काल देश के लिए कर्तव्य काल है। चाहे व्यक्ति हो या संस्थाएं, हमारे दायित्व ही आज हमारी पहली प्राथमिकता है। अपने कर्तव्य पथ पर चलते हुए ही हम देश को विकास की नई ऊंचाई पर ले जा सकते हैं।
Fundamental duties are intended to serve as a constant reminder to every citizen that while the Constitution specifically conferred on them certain fundamental rights, it also requires citizens to observe basic norms of democratic conduct and democratic behavior. They serve as a warning to the people against the anti-social activities that disrespect the nation, like burning the flag, destroying public property, or disturbing public peace. These help in the promotion of a sense of discipline and commitment towards the nation. They help in realizing national goals by the active participation of citizens rather than mere spectators. The fundamental duties are not merely pedantic or technical. They were incorporated as a key to social transformation. The fundamental duties help the court in determining the constitutionality of the law. The Supreme Court of India has issued directions to governments to create a conducive environment for effective fulfillment of duties.
It became necessary because once you are giving fundamental rights to the individual, it also became imperative that they must be made conscious about the duties which they are supposed to follow, and most of the duties are with regard to their nations. There can't be any right without a duty. Therefore, the chapter relating to duties was specifically incorporated in the Constitution by way of Chapter 4A in 1976. We talk about the responsibilities given to the state under the directive principle of state policy. We talk about fundamental rights given to the individual, and therefore incorporating fundamental duties also became very necessary so that people know about it. Many a time we have found that people always talk about their rights, but they don't speak about the duties which they owe. And suppose I have a fundamental rights of walking on the road. Similarly, it's my duty that I ensure that other can also walk safely. And this has been recognized even by the Supreme Court also in number of decisions given from time to time. And a time has come when we find that non-enforcement or non-obliging to the following of the fundamental duties should be made a punishable offense under the law. Of course, it is provided in the Constitution, but there is no penal provision for not following the fundamental duties. I think a time has come when a separate law needed to be enacted where if any person is not following the fundamental duties, he should be punished under the law.
The famous landmark case of Minerva Mills versus Union of India, the courts held that there may be a rule which imposes obligation on an individual or authority, and yet it may not be enforceable in a court of law, and therefore not give rise to a corresponding right or obligation in another person. But it would still be a legal rule because it prescribes a norm of conduct to be followed by such individual or authority. Over a period of time, there have been various legislations which give teeth to fundamental duties like the Environment Protection Act, Representative People's Act, and the Forest Conservation Act, and indirectly impose obligations, provide for specifications and penalties and punishments, and act as stringent regulations.
In 1998, Atal Bihari Vajpayee's government had appointed Justice J.S. Verma Committee to operationalize the suggestions to teach fundamental duties to the citizens of the country. This committee submitted its report containing a number of recommendations for the government to act on. The Justice J.S. Verma Committee recommended that the duty to vote at elections, actively participate in the democratic process of governance, and pay taxes should be included in Article 51A of the Constitution. It also identified legal provisions for the implementation of some of the fundamental duties, such as the Prevention of Insults to National Honour Act 1971, which prevents disrespect to the Constitution of India, the national flag, and the national anthem. The Protection of Civil Rights Act provides for punishments for offences related to caste and religion. The Unlawful Activities Prevention Act of 1967 provides for the declaration of a communal organisation as an unlawful association. The Wildlife Protection Act prohibits trade in rare and endangered species. The Forest Conservation Act checks indiscriminate deforestation and diversion of forest land for non-forest purposes. The Representation of the People Act 1951 provides for the disqualification of members of parliament or a state legislature for indulging in corrupt practice. Let's also take a look at the relationship between the fundamental rights, directive principles, and fundamental duties. Fundamental rights are the rights provided by the Indian Constitution for the protection of rights of people, their well-being, among other things. They are also known as citizens' basic human rights. The directive principles are the principles provided by the Constitution for the government to create legislation. These are not court-enforceable provisions like the fundamental rights. These principles serve as essential parameters for the state's governance while the state is developing and adopting legislation. The fundamental duties are the moral responsibilities of all people that contribute to the promotion of patriotism and Indian unity. They, like directive principles, are not enforceable by the courts because they involve persons and the nation. When legislation conflicts with the fundamental rights, the directive principles have been invoked to defend the constitutional legality of the legislation. Fundamental rights and directive principles have also been utilized in conjunction to create the foundation of legislation for the welfare of citizens. Rights and duties have to exist together. Rights without duties will lead to anarchy. In this context, the fundamental duties serve as a constant reminder of national goals as well as to inculcate a profound sense of social responsibility. The court and civil society organizations, political parties and governments have also underlined the significance of fundamental duties for overall development of the society. The union and the state governments have been sensitizing people and creating general awareness about fundamental duties amongst the citizens. People have been sensitized about their duty to vote in elections, pay taxes, and actively participate in the democratic process of governance. Fundamental duties have been described by the critics as the code of moral precepts due to their non-justiciable nature. The list of duties is not exhaustive, as it does not cover other important duties like casting vote, paying taxes, family planning, and so on. However, fundamental duties lead to national integration, unity, and cultural harmony among the members of different castes and creeds within Indian society. Though erstwhile USSR was the first country in the world to adopt fundamental duties in its constitution, now both communist and non-communist countries of the world have provisions for fundamental duties. Well, viewers, that's all we had for you in this edition. Thanks for watching and stay tuned to Sansad TV.
संसद टीवी के और भी प्रोग्राम्स देखने के लिए सब्सक्राइब करें हमारा यूट्यूब चैनल और हाँ, इन्हें लाइक और शेयर करना ना भूलें।